Welcome back, everybody. It is May of 2021, and this is episode 29 of What Is On My Desk. So here we are, back for another one. If you had seen last month's update, I'll put the link to it up here. If you had seen it, you would have seen that I've started another batch of models. Unfortunately, as has been the case for the past couple of months, I am just extremely busy in my normal life, if you want to call it that. Work has been busy, just dealing with the family has been busy. Schools are closed yet again with the pandemic, so the oldest has been home. We've been dealing with that. We've been trying to manage everything. It's just been a bit of a hectic couple of weeks. It's been a hectic couple of months. It's been a hectic year with everything that's been going on. So I have not had as much time as I would have liked to work on this. But at the end of the day, I have got some progress done. So we'll get over here soon, take a look at that. I also have a couple of books I'm going to be introducing to you. I actually got these last month, and I had filmed the little intro to them, and then I completely forgot to add it to last month's update. So we'll get swung over. We'll take a look at those books first, and then we'll take a quick look at the progress on the kits that I have going. And that's it. It's going to be a relatively short video this month. I haven't had much going on. I haven't had much new products. Actually, no new products other than the books that I got last month. So on that note, let's get swung over. Let's get this started. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we get into the video, something I should have been doing a lot more up till now, and that is just asking you guys out there, if you enjoy what you're looking at, if you like what I'm doing, go down below, click on the like page, subscribe to my channel, and by all means, please click on that little notification bell. If that way you guys get alerted when I do get more new content up. I usually try to do the What's on My Desk monthly update beginning of the month. And I usually try to get a video or a series of videos released by the 15th, the middle of the month. So whether that's going to be a tips and tricks video, or an aviation history video, or my time-lapse videos of the previous model builds that I've got done, or an air show video, or some of my new product review videos I'll be doing. So I'm going to try to get something posted by the middle of the month. So please, if you're enjoying this, subscribe, like, and click that notification bell. Let's move on to the video. Okay, so here we are at the desk. We'll take a quick look at some new books I got before we swing over and take a look at the models. Now, I mean, again, as pretty common with books, I didn't plan on going out to buy these. It wasn't something I had on a list that I was keeping my eye out for or anything like that. It was just a spur of the moment deal that I saw that I grabbed because it was a great deal. So the first one we'll talk about was actually a complete and utter surprise, to be honest, on every front. Browsing the Warbird Information Exchange, which I do quite regularly, a lot of information on, as the name implies, warbirds and air shows and stuff like that. So I was just happened to be browsing to see what's new. And there was a post by somebody saying, effectively, anybody interested in a Squadron walk-around or a Squadron in-action book on the B-24 and the B-26. Both of which I have models of, both of which I don't currently have copies of those books. And I thought, hey, why the hell not? So I messaged and said, hey, how much do you want for them? Before I got a reply, somebody else said, I'm interested in the B-26 book, but he got back to me and basically said, they're free. Just send me your address and I'll ship them to you. Which, at the end of the day was an amazing offer. So of course I said yes, sent him my address, and proceeded to say, by the way, I am in Canada, so if you need, help, I'm basically more than willing to help cover the cost of shipping. Never heard back from him. Next day, no answer. Day after that, no answer. So I basically wrote it off to being ghosted as soon as they find out they're shipping to Canada, which unfortunately would not be the first time that happened. where somebody's like, hey, yeah, for sure, you know, I'll send it to you. Or, I win a prize in a contest. Yeah, we'll send it to you. And then they get the shipping quote to Canada, and I never hear from them again because they realize it's going to cost, unfortunately, an arm and a leg to mail it to Canada. So I just wrote it up as, yeah, you know what, that's the end of that, never going to see it. So I was pleasantly surprised about a week later when the package showed up in the mail with the book. And it wasn't just that book. He sent a few B24 related items, which I am very, very grateful for. I mean, I'm 99.9999999% sure he will never see this video. But I appreciate that type of I don't know what the word is, not gratuity, but it was very nice of him. And I greatly appreciate the fact that he was nice enough to not only offer the book for free, but ship it to me in Canada for free at his own expense and include some extra stuff. So we'll take a quick look at those 3 items. The first one, as I mentioned, was the B24 Squadron Signal Publications in Action book. I love these books. They are a little dated, but lots of cool information, so I'll quickly go through that. He also sent me this, which I'd never seen before. It was, well, it's the Living History series. It's called The Soldier, Consolidated B24, and I believe that this book, the plane was owned by, I want to say Talmance. Quite a bit of aviation history with him. He's owned a lot of planes. I have to do I did read this before, and I already completely forget. Sorry, I am just going to take a quick... Anyways, I'll have to do the research on this. This aircraft is the one... This picture, this book was the early 1990s, I believe, when this was written. 1994, when this book was written. And as I said, this aircraft, I believe, at the time was owned by Paul Mance or one of those other... I'd have to do the research. I'll put it up on the screen here. I'll have the history of the aircraft, who owned it before this. A long story short, this aircraft is the one currently owned by Kermit Weeks in Florida. But this was it was airworthy at the time. It was still flown, and it was a really nice... The aircraft is very, very original inside, and this was a bit of a walkthrough of the aircraft with some reenactors, take some pictures, and just get a good idea of what the interior of B-24 looked like. There's only 2 of them still flying. This one was the 3rd at the time. So, cool book. Never seen this before. Never heard of it before. It does have a lot of really cool pictures. Like I said, I'll go through a bit of detail on that in a second. And he also sent me a copy of Wings. I've never heard of this magazine before. I believe this is... yeah, it's like a warbird military magazine. I'd never heard of it before. But there's a whole section on the B-24 Liberator. Quite a big section actually on the B-24 Liberator. So he included this as well in the package he sent me. So I guess we'll just quickly start with this one. So this magazine is from December of 1991. You know, it's a typical magazine. But yeah, so there's a whole section here about the B-24 Liberator, the history of the airframe, how it was, you know, developed, going through its operational history. Lots of interesting pictures of different Liberators in service, histories of some of the turrets that they used and the gunning positions. Some pictures of close-ups of nose art, some in-action shots of them in service. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting... it's a pretty interesting book, I have to say. You know, it's a nice, well-kept, classic-looking magazine. Dave Talachette. There we go. Look at that. The one from the previous book is in this magazine as well. So yeah, Dave Talachette was the one who owned that B-24 before it was sold to Kermit Weeks. Dave Talashat is also, the Talashat family also owns the movie Memphis Belle B-17, used in the filming of the movie back in the early 90s. And it was, it's currently leased to, the National Warplane Museum / 1941 Historical Aircraft Group, whatever you want to call them, located in Geneseo, New York. The Talashat family owns a lot of warbirds, still does own a lot of warbirds, but it was owned by him before sold to Kermit Weeks. But again, lots of interesting history in here. Some pictures, stuff I've never seen before, some of the details on some of these aircraft. Quite a bit of interesting pictures, information. You know, there's Diamond Lil, so that's the one that's currently owned by the Warbird, Commemorative Air Force, still flying. And then you've got Talashat's aircraft here, which again is currently with Kermit Weeks. I believe it's still classified as airworthy, but does not currently fly. So yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, I haven't even started to read through any of this yet. There's a lot. Then there's an article at the back about the U.S., I believe it's the U.S. Air Force aggressor unit based in Washington State. But again, this is from the early 90s. So a lot of interesting historical information in here that is interesting to look through. So it's just a cool. I have a couple of older magazines I've put away right now, just so they don't get ruined. I have some Life magazines. I actually have a Life magazine from December 7th. You know what? I'll show that to you right now while I'm here. So I actually picked this up at the Thunder River, Michigan Air Show a few years ago. And I bought this for a very specific reason. And it was in a box of random Life magazines of World War II vintage. But the interesting thing is the date. December 8th, 1941. And for anybody who knows history, they know that Pearl Harbor was attacked on the morning of December 7th, 1941. But morning Hawaii was afternoon New York time. And the way that these magazines were printed at the time, I don't believe they were printed on a daily basis. They were printed on a weekly basis. So this would have been the magazine that came out on or right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So it's dated the day after the attack of Pearl Harbor, December 8th, 1941. And there's no mention of the attack on Pearl Harbor. So this was printed probably at the printers while the attack at Pearl Harbor was happening. Now there are some instances where, you know, certain ads have been cut out. I mean, that's a beautiful old Coca-Cola ad. It's an original 1941 magazine Coca-Cola ad. So, you know, that might be worth something for the right people, but I mean, it's in really good shape. You know, there's some nice classic ads in here. But there's also pictures of articles and pictures that has to do with combat, with war, with what's happening in the world at the time. So as you read through this, you will find, I have to see if I can find it again. But yeah, it's just a really neat kind of, this is completely off topic from where I started, but what is that? Hires root beer. Haven't had that since I was a kid. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. See, here we go. This is a perfect example of why I bought this. December 8th, 1941. the day after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And the article is "The Ancient Imperial Power of Japan Comes to a Showdown with America." And it's basically talking about how Japan had been butting heads with the United States, and how, for example, the emperor had sent to President Roosevelt special envoy Saburo Kurosawa, equipped with a wonderful, confident smile and nothing else. He was told frankly that Japan's conquering course of empire had careened to its end as far as the U.S. was concerned. Now a line was drawn over which Japan cannot step without risk of war with the U.S. Exactly what line the U.S. drew was the secret of the two governments. Kurosawa sent word back to Japan, which replied by hastily piling more troops into French Indochina and bombing the Burma Road. The stage was set for war, a distant, dangerous, hard, amphibious war for which the American nation was not yet fully prepared, nor anyone have a clear and certain idea of the final path to victory. But the Navy had the courage for a fight with Japan, the Army had the courage for it, the Air Force had the courage for it, most of the U.S. Congress and 60% of the people were willing to face it. And far away in Philippines, Lieutenant General McDonnell Douglas and his small task force stood with the toughest courage of all on the front line. So, yeah, it's interesting because this book was basically released before For a nation poised on the precipice of a two-ocean war, the U.S. was extraordinarily complacent last week. Washington cocked tense ears for the first sounds of shooting in the wide Pacific. Congressional leaders, even isolationists, predicted that a declaration of war on Japan could be shoved through both houses with as little difficulty as a minor appropriation. There is no question that the country was thoroughly aware of the situation. Newspaper headlines loomed heavily with portents, yet no one worried. From coast to coast, Americans thought more about tactics in Libya and 2 or 3 lively murder cases that they did war with the Orient. Rear Admiral Adolphus Andrews, commander of the North Atlantic coastal frontier. Yeah. It's interesting that, this was basically talking about here's like some stories about combat in Africa. Some great pictures and whatnot about what happened in Africa. The sinking of a U.S. ship in the North Atlantic. But yeah, so it's just interesting because this was all about, they're talking about the possibility of war with Japan and how it could come at any day and how easily it would be to tip the scales into war with Japan. Meanwhile, like I said, either right around the time this was being printed, if not as this was being printed, Japan was attacking Pearl Harbor and war came around without any real effort. So I mean, it's just an interesting piece of history that it's dated the day after Pearl Harbor, but there's nothing in here that talks about talks about war itself. Basically, this article is talking about how, so at the time, the Navy had their own, the Navy aircraft, and the Army had the Army Air Forces, but there was a push to create the Air Force as a separate body, and the Army wanted to keep their aviation, and the Navy wanted to keep their aviation. So this is basically an article talking about how, naval aviation works and how it wouldn't make sense to split off naval aviation. So it's just a really, really, really interesting MacArthur of the Far East. If war should come, he leads the army that will fight Japan. And I mean, it's just, we all know the history because, like, literally, as I said, at the time that this was being written, as this was being written, the Battle of the World, the attack on Pearl Harbor had already happened. His stories about how they would reach the Philippines during war to help, protect them, and how to invade all these other, Japanese-held islands, how you would be able to attack Tokyo from all of these, if they attacked, how they would be able to do it. But, it's just interesting to see how things really turned out compared to how they were talking even the day that Japan attacked. So I'm going way off on a tangent here. I'm just kind of reliving. I bought this magazine a few years ago, but I like having older stuff like this. You know, stuff like this. It just shows you, you know, at the time the way things were compared to how we look at it today. So quickly go over this book here, The Soldier. As I said, it starts off with a bit of a history of the B-24, talking about, again, its history, development, all that other stuff, and then it goes into this beautiful full-color picture spread of that aircraft as it was flying in the early 90s. And it's got some great color shots. View from the bomb aimer, you know, a reenactor looking into the nose. Beautiful, just close-up shots of all of the interior. As it states, this aircraft had never really had a full restoration. What you're looking at in these pictures and what Kermit Weeks owns is a B-24 that for the most part is 1944 original. Nothing was really pulled out and restored. It was just left as is. So a view in the front turret, the gun sight, the cockpit, all the beautiful. So it's a great reference for modelers, for me, when I'm painting a model, to see how the interior would have looked, you know, without really a restoration job being happened, the paint chipping and all that other stuff. So it's a really, really good reference for me. Some gun turret close-ups, the look inside, again, you can see the color, that bronze green color, the chipping. It's just a great reference for when you're model building. The bomb doors, the way the roll-up doors fit on the outside of the fuselage, the bomb bay with the shackles and the electronic releases, and the wing spar, again, the paint chipping, all that happens in here. So it's just a really, really nice reference. The floor, the way that you can see the different colors chipping through. Bit of a glare there, I'm sorry. I'm gonna see if I can get rid of that. Probably not. I think it's just the way the lights are. But anyways, you can see a great way of the chipping, how it works inside, the weathering patterns on the tables, the radios, the rear fuselage again, paint chipping in the floors, and all the equipment, the way it sits and the different colors. And yeah. It's a really, really interesting book. And again, the fact that I got this just sent to me for free, not only was that super gracious of him, but this is just such an amazing reference. You know, landing gear, the way the brake lines run, the exhaust, the discoloration on the exhaust stacks. I mean, this was a working aircraft. This isn't a museum example. So it's a great reference and all that. So again, the book was sent to me for free. Can't complain at all on that. And then the B-24 in action book. I do love these in action books. There's lots of history in here. Again, the beginning process, you know, the prototype designs. Here's a breakdown of the actual production, who built what versions they were called, how they're interconnected, where assemblies went. So it's a very, very interesting history. And then you have all the different versions of the B-24 through its history, the privateer and the B-32. But you get, you know, again, the history, the tail turret details, radars, you know, like all these little bits of things, the British modifications they made to them. Again, turrets, propellers, windows, lots and lots of interesting, minor little details for the different versions, how the guns were assembled. So if you're building models, you can figure out, you know, the version you need to build, the details, some breakdowns on the British ASW. Again, here, some of the breakdowns between the Standard and the XB-41 gunship, which I'll put a link at the top if you haven't seen my gunship video. I did do a video on gunships, and I did cover the XB-41 briefly. Yeah, so just, you know, some modifications in the nose designs from different places. And there's a bit of a color thing. So, you know, moving on to later versions with the turrets, all the different versions of turrets, some great pictures of nose art and combat aircraft, and they're just great references. If you're into, you know, here's an idea where they modified some of the turrets and camera ships, and then the Navy version with the different nose turret, the Urco turret that they had onto the privateer, which was quite a bit of a modification of the Liberator. And then it ends with the XB-32 Dominator, which was their late version, kind of complement to the B-29 version. So anyways, very, very interesting book. If you haven't seen them, highly recommend it if you're a researcher to or any type of model builder to grab some of those books. And finally, I bought, now it is a 3-part series, and it's the Larry Milbury's Canada's Air Force at War and Peace. And it's a 3-part series, and you would imagine that this series would cost a ton of money. And just to put things in perspective, I've seen issues 1 and 2 for sale on places like AvWorld and some other different aviation sites on site. And these usually go for between $40 to $60 each book. And then this one, I haven't seen what's for sale before. But in the front, the MRSP on the inside cover is $88 Canadian. So these are not cheap books. And I was tagged on a Facebook group, tagged on to the fact that these were currently for sale, and I think they still are, at Chapters Indigo for $15 a book. So I paid $45 for all 3 books together, and because I spent over $40, they shipped it to my door for free. So this is a great book. I'm running out of battery on the camera, so this could cut out at any time. But it's a great reference of the history of the Air Force. You know, the personal interviews, statistics, pictures. You know, just it is an unbelievably detailed series. The number of pictures in this book alone is worth the full price, let alone the fact that I got it for $15. So anyways, lots and lots of great pictures. So volume 1 covers sort of the fighters leading up into World War II on the fighter side of things. Volume 2 focuses more on the bombers. So it starts kind of at the beginning of the war, night fighters, intruders, and then it moves on into some of the bomber units, into coastal command units, and it finishes up with the war artist. So the first 2 books cover sort of the Canadian in World War II. First section, fighters. Second section's night fighters, bombers, and patrol. And then volume 3 covers sort of the post-war years. And again, there's some great color shots in here. Some warbirds that survived the war, and some of the history of the aircraft. You know, Ernie Simmons' farm in Tillsonburg, and some of the aircraft that got used in post-war usage, and the scrap yards. Just an amazing book. You know, post-war again, lots of beautiful pictures here of some of these Canadian aircraft bases, ready rooms, factories, flight lines, pilots. Just, it is a resource that is unmatched for anybody. Like, look at that. You know, anybody who's unmatched, just pictures. Goose Bay, again, museums, post-war Lancasters, cold weather testing. You know, like, it's just the flight testing. It's just an unbelievable resource. You know, the Voodoos and NORAD and NATO, and I mean, for $45, if that sale is still on, if anybody's watching this isn't interested in these books, go to Chapters Indigo, check out and see if these books are still on sale. $15 a book. You cannot beat that value. So that covers the new books. I do not have new models. Thank God I haven't bought any new models recently. I don't need any more models. But that note, let's get everything ready to go. We'll take a look at these 4 kits. Very, very happy with the progress on these 4 kits. And you guys can take a look and see where things are. So very, very close to getting these finished. So here we go with the 4 models. So here we are, swung over to the desk, quickly go over the 4 kits that I have completed finally after many, many months and slow progress. They are done. So as always, left to right, I will start with the 0. So there she is, all finished, turned out looking good. A few minor things I would like to have corrected on this if I could go back and do it again, but overall I'm very happy with it. The salt paint chipping turned out great. It looks really good with all that chip paint. The flat coat really dulled that aluminum, so you don't get a lot of shine from it. It looks like it's been sort of used and abused, and, you know, used hard and put away wet, as they say. So very happy with how it turned out. All the little details worked out well. Very, very happy with that. Can't complain at all. And yeah, it's gonna look great. It's the sit on the shelf over there beside my Gecko that I built before, so it'll look really good sitting side by side. And yeah, the time lapse build for this. I have to go through and process all those videos and get them all done. So it'd probably maybe be, you know, a month or two. But stay tuned on this channel, and I will have the time lapse build of this going live soon. So moving on to the P39. So there we go. P39 is built. Some issues with this. I shouldn't say issues. I had some worries about this. It had quite a bit of photo etch in the kit, and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of photo etch. I haven't had a good track record with it. Worked really well with this. No issues at all. White paint. Again, I don't have the best track record when it comes to painting white paint. It always comes out looking a little iffy. The Vallejo Model Air lays down beautifully, so I had no issues putting on a nice coat of white on this. Looks really good. I mean, I've never really built a P39 before. Sorry, yeah, P39. Never really built one before. So to have this beautiful looking one, and I love the nose weight that was included. So it sits beautifully on the nose. I don't have to worry about guessing for weights or anything like that, and having it as a tail sitter. Even if you put it on its tail, there's enough weight to drop it back on its nose. Beautiful. I love the look of it with the car doors open, being able to look inside that cockpit, seeing all the detail that went on in there. So again, very, very happy with that. Looks great. Can't complain at all. Some minor things that, you know, in hindsight I wish I'd changed and done a little differently, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I love this. So there you go. That is the P39. Same with the Zero time-lapse video. For all of them, I'm just going to say it right now. Wait a couple of weeks, you know, maybe 2 months. I should have at least another update for when these things will be coming out, so I know it's a bit of a wait. I'm sorry, it does take quite a bit of time to edit those videos, but as always, there will be a full time-lapse build of all 4 of these kits. So that is the P39. And again, if you guys want to see anything more specific, some more details of these, I will have links in the description below where you can go and see my full, on the website, picture build log, as well as the final photo shoot I did with these 4 kits. So you can take a look at those and see what they look like. So moving on to the F15. This thing is a beast, and I realized as I was filming the wrap-up video for the time-lapse videos, I think this might be the first F15 I've ever built. I don't recall ever having built an F15 before. I was given some F15s when I was younger from a buddy of mine who built some, and they're sitting in a box waiting to be sort of rebuilt. But this might be the first F15 I've ever built. Yeah, it looks great. I'm very happy with how it turned out. The weathering, I feel personally, is just right for what an active jet would look like. It isn't overdone, it's subtle, but there's just enough variation in that color to just make it look like an in-service jet. I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again, I'm not as happy with this titanium color as I wanted. It's a bit of a gold titanium. They didn't have any standard titanium, and it is a little bit too gold for my liking. Cockpit looks well, looks nice. Out of the box detail. I didn't do any aftermarket work on that cockpit, and I mean, it still holds up, looks good with a bit of weathering. It looks great. I love these decals. They are straight out of the box from the Revell decals. They went down, a little bit of issues here and there, but overall they went down nice. I had a bit of silvering, but I managed to go through and get the worst of that out of the way. And I love the way this turned out. In terms of weaponry, I loaded it all the way up. With the 4 sidewinders, the drop tanks, the 4 GBU-10s, the data pod, all the targeting pods, all that stuff. The bombs, they are great bombs. I wish there would be a little bit more in terms of markings for them. The real ones had quite a bit of different markings and stuff on them. The boxes, the kit didn't include any of that. So I did the best I could to kind of make them look like a training round and busy them up a little bit, but it's a little bit bland. But other than that, I mean, I'm very happy with how everything turned out. Painting the intakes using the house paint and then a sponge to mask off turned out good. Turned out really well, actually. I love the look of that. So very happy with that overall. You know, even the tail art came out looking nice. It looks good. It looks good. I'm very happy with that. So yeah, stay tuned. As I said, a couple of months we'll get the time-lapse build log of this put up, and you can run over to the website if you want to see some shots of the finished model. It's a little annoying with everything hanging out. It's kind of hard to pick this up without knocking something off. So I have to be very gentle with how I move this around. Make sure I don't break anything. But there you go. So that is the Revell Monogram Pro Modeler F15E Strike Eagle with out of the box, completely out of the box. Nothing on this did not come out of the kit. So that's very interesting that I don't do a lot of out of box builds. But yeah, I guess I did 3 of them. So there you go, out of the box. And then finally, the ICM Beach 18 C45 Expediter, Bug Masher, whatever you want to call it, reboxed by Revolove Germany, and this is the RCAF version, which I used Caracal decals for, and the Caracal decals went down beautifully. I can't say enough about how well they went down. I did have the one issue with the upper wing roundels. They, the ones I put on when I went to mask for the de-icing boot, even after gloss coat, decal setting solution, and another sealant gloss coat, they just peeled right off the wing, and I don't know why they did that. I used the later style markings on the wings just to finish it off. I don't think most people will notice the difference. Other than that, I did use the Belcher bits conversion, so it's got the Belcher bits extended nacelles, the extended leading edges. It has the Astro Dome for the navigator training, and this is the Royal Canadian Air Force Training Command. So this one was from the late 1950s, I believe. I did the base up with the standard plaque from Michaels with some stain, some gloss finish, a nice brass rod to put it up. And that's going to sit nicely on my RCAF shelf over there with the rest of the models. So yeah, overall, again, very happy with how this turned out. There's always a few little things I wish turned out a bit better. I had some issues with the Alclad drying midstream, so it's a little rough here in the wing root. As well, I got a little bit of overspray from some of the primer on the inside of the windows. But overall, like I said, it turned out great, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, there you go. That is the ICM rebox of, the Revell Germany rebox of the ICM Beach 18 / C45, done up in the RCAF scheme using Caracal decals and Belcher bits conversions. So now that we've seen the 4 kits that are already done, I'll do a quick intro with the 4 kits that I'm going to build next. I'm also going to have full kit reviews for these 4 kits. I'll be doing a full-blown review video of those, so if they haven't gone up yet, I'm trying to think, this goes up, it's early April, if this goes up early May, I might have one up already, I'm not entirely sure, but check the model review playlist. If they're not up yet, within the next few weeks, you'll start to see some of these full review model reviews for these 4 kits coming up. So I'll start off with, I've got 2 commission builds I'm doing. And the first one, as you will clearly see, is in pieces in a box, and it is something completely out of the ordinary for me anyways, and that is the Monogram Colonial Viper from Battlestar Galactica. And this kit is definitely aged. I believe it's from the 1970s. Yeah, 1978 is when this kit came out. And this is a commission build for a old acquaintance of mine, pilot. He messaged me out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in a few years, actually. He messaged me out of the blue and asked if I'd be able to finish and paint this off for him. I have since effectively disassembled the kit. It had some really rough assembly. I don't even know what kind of glue they used on this. There's a lot of white residue, and the plastic doesn't really look like it melted the way that most plastic glues work. So I think they might have used some sort of like an epoxy glue or something to assemble it, because it all just popped apart really easily, and it left all this really nasty looking white residue over everything. So I pulled it all apart. I'm going to clean it up a little bit and go through and reassemble it and then do the painting, the final painting for it. So have to look at some online resources to see how these things were painted up for the show and get it all done. But it's a little bit different. I can kind of go a little bit, a little experimental, as they say, with my painting skills, and take a look and see what I can pull off and have some fun with it. But yeah, looking forward to that. So I got this going on. I'm not going to do much of a review on this in the on the video. I actually might not even do one. This might be all you see of this kit in terms of reviews. I'll probably not do a review on this, to be honest. Yeah, it'll be interesting. You'll get to see me do the final assembly on this, and then get some painting done. And then the other commission build I have, I didn't actually get a box. It was all just the pieces instead of a shipping box. They did include the box top, which came with it, and it's this. It is the 1/72nd scale MPC C130, which, from what I can gather, is a rebox of the old Airfix kit. is the best that I can come up with in terms of history. And I don't know exactly the age of this kit, but it's probably from, here we go, there's a date on the box, 1976. Like I said, it's a rebox of the old Airfix kit, so yeah, he wants me to do it up in Canadian marking, so I'll do that. So the kit itself, it's pretty rough, as I said, being a 1960s or 1970s era Airfix kit. So I mean, this is literally how I got it inside of a Canada Post shipping document, so a shipping box. A lot of raised details on it, some really soft details, some poor fit. It's going to take quite a bit of effort to get this to clean up. But as far as I can tell, all the pieces are here. I did a quick inventory when I got it. Some of the landing gear parts are broken. He did ask that I build it sort of in a takeoff pose with the landing gear just coming up. So that's going to be relatively easy for me to do. Considering parts of it are broken, I just have to put the wheels and some gear folding up. Yeah, as I said, all the parts are here as far as I can tell. The only real issue with this, which I will have to solve at a later date, is I'll show you here on the rear fuselage on the beaver tail, which is the part of the fuselage underneath the tail behind the main ramp. Get this the fuselage sort of put together. A lot of warpage going on here too, so it's going to take quite a bit for me to get this. I don't even know how the glue is going to handle this plastic. It doesn't feel quite the same as normal styrene, so I think it's a slightly different. It feels very brittle and very glossy is the best way. Very smooth, so I don't know how well it'll bite with the model glue. Anyways, the big issue with this kit, other than its age and relative lack of detail, this tail. You can see it's missing a whole section of this tail, and I can't tell. It doesn't look like it was broken. It looks more like it was short shot. It didn't quite fill the mold properly, so this whole entire rear tail is missing. So my plan is to basically make one from scratch. So luckily the top, as you can see, the top part of it is relatively flat, and I can sort of make a paper copy of one side and use it to make a plastic piece for this side to fill in the shape. And then on the bottom I'll try to do the same thing, and with a bit of sanding and putty, hopefully I can make it all fit. I'll probably have to build up some internal structure to lift and hold the plastic in the right place and work my way around with bending and maybe even a little bit of heating and just get it all to mold into shape, and then sand and whatnot. But we'll see what I can do. But my plan is to try to rebuild this as best as I can, and get that looking somewhat back to normal. And then once it's all, luckily the rear door was going to be up, so I can put it all in place, fill it in as much as I can, sand, putty, get ready. You know, it'll look good when I'm done. So that's the big thing. Other than that, it'll be a straight build, minimal detail on the inside of the fuselage because you're not going to see much. Excuse me. Like I said, it's going to be on a base, sort of in an upward angle, kind of like this, like it's just taking off. Gear partially retracted. He does want it done up in the search and rescue format, which is effectively these doors are all windows, and there would be a little pallet inside with two seats that would look outside the windows. So I'm going to go through the box of spares I have, try to find two 1/72 seats I have, just generic seats. Even they're ejection seats, I'll just sand a lot of the detail off so they just look like regular plastic seats, and I'll just mount them in there on a little bit of sheet styrene, paint them all up. It'll block a lot of the view inside that door. It'll fill it in a little bit, and you know, make it look, you'll just see the shadow basically of there's not going to be a lot of light in there, so you'll just see sort of the outline of a chair just inside the window with the red seat cushion, and just make it look somewhat regular. Then the cockpit will be just enough detail you can see what's going on, but I think that'll definitely it'll look good, I think. And this is the same client I built that F-18 for a couple of videos ago. I'll put a link up here in the corner to that F-18 build. It's the same person who had that done, so it'll look kind of cool having the F-18 beside the C-130. So this will be a modern RCAF, dark gray. I've got the decals. I'll show those to you in a little bit. Yeah, so that's that. As I said, it's going to be a bit of work. I got to rebuild that tail. I got to try to make an old kit look good, so it's going to take a little bit of effort. But at the end of the day, I think it will be worth it. So those are the 2 of the 4 kits, the two of the commission builds. My own kits I'm building for this, I chose this one, Accurate Miniatures B25G. I'm not going to be doing it as a G, I'm actually going to be building it as a D model. I started building this like 15 years ago, and I never finished it because the skill to build it just was beyond my ability at the time. I had planned to do a foil metal finish on it. That didn't work out. I moved on. I was going to paint it silver, and it didn't necessarily turn out the way I wanted. I was expecting more of a shiny finish, and I just sort of put it away and forgot about it. So I am going to come back and finish it now, and I'm going to be doing it up as a RCAF. Oh, you know what? Before I do this, I'm going to show you guys, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself here, the decals for the C130. So, leading edge, 1/72 scale, C130 decal. So that's sort of the scheme it's going to be. He wants it done up as 334, which is actually the picture on the aircraft on the block. So that's the aircraft I'll be doing up the model as. You can see it comes with a bunch of instructions on all little details and the stencils and where they all go, and some details for the different versions, the E, the H, and again where the stencils go and what you need to do to make it look right. And then the decals themselves are quite extensive. You got a lot of these, the prop tips if you want to use decal prop tips, which I probably will just to make my life a little easier, or possibly just use the white with paint them red and use the white decals. But anyways, it includes that. You've got some wing walk areas, and then you've got all your standard stencils and decals and stuff. So leading edge is a great kit, great set of decals. I'm not too worried at all about the quality of that. But that is what I will be using for the C130. So that being said, moving back to the B25, it did have the gun nose. I had planned to do the gun nose. I later changed my mind to use the glass nose, and in the process of gluing that together, I tried to use some super glue and some putty, and I never got it to stick properly, and it's all covered in all this crap. And that's about the time I said, you know what, forget it, and I moved on. So going back, I am going to finish it. As you can see, it's been sitting for years. Like the wing spars are snapped off. So I'm going to build it. I'm going to do it up in an in-flight mode. So it'll be on a stand in mid-flight. So in terms of having that wing root, the wing spars broken, doesn't matter because there'll be no weight on the wings other than the weight of the wing itself. So I got to put the bomb doors on. I got to put the turret cover in. All the doors will be closed. Clean all that up. I am just going to paint the whole thing in aluminum. I'm not going to use alclad or any metallizers. I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to do the basic this aluminum finish. Use the glass nose, and I will be doing it up in an RCAF scheme, and for that I have the Can Mill Air decals, and I have done some research online, and I've looked around, and basically what I plan on doing is doing something like this. I'm not going to have the crest, unfortunately, but I do have a Can Mill Air does provide enough decals to do a bunch of different versions. So I'm probably going to end up doing something like this. And the glass, it has the glass nose, but the glass nose is painted black. And I think that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to do a variation, sort of a middle of the road kind of scheme. You can see another one here where it has, it's a later version, but you can see again where it has the glass nose painted off. There's this version here where the glass nose is open. Here's another one where it's painted. So I'm going to do some again here, right? So I think I'm going to do a bit of a middle of the ground variation where I'm going to do an early style D model with the turrets blanked off, the glass nose painted black, but I'm also going to have the cowlings painted black. And then I'm going to have the red on the wingtips and the horizontal stab. So it's going to be kind of a middle of the ground, middle of the road type one. I'm also probably going to pull off these. Actually, I'll probably just leave the bomb rocks in place. I got to do some cleanup on this. But anyways, it's going to look pretty cool. it's a great way to finish this model. It's been sitting around for years and just taking up space. So paint the whole thing in aluminum paint. I'm not going to do metalizer, just straight aluminum paint. Black nose, black cowlings, red wingtips, red horizontal stabs, all the Canadian markings, and then have it mounted on a stand. And I think that's just the best way to finish this kit off and just get it done. So that's my plan. As I said, I will be doing a bit of a kit review on this one, just to show what does come in this box. And so like I said, I will be doing that, so stay tuned to see a full kit review video on this kit. It will be coming eventually. So after that, the other kit I'm going to do for myself, I was looking for something simple. I have quite a bit of work I got to do. As you saw, I've got a spaceship that is sort of out of my normal league. I've got a C-130 that's going to need quite a bit of scratch building to get it back up to par, and it's an older kit. I'm going to need some work. I got a B-25 that I started 15 years ago that I have to go through and clean up and try to finish and make look presentable. So, by the way, just as an offshoot, if you haven't noticed, that B-25 is going to look basically like this, is what it's going to look like when I'm done. You can kind of see the theme I'm building on my models. Anyways, so I wanted a kit that would be, at the end of the day, relatively easy to build. I didn't want to spend a ton of time doing anything overly complicated, lots of fiddly details, complicated paint schemes, something that was huge. I don't want any of that. I want just a simple build that I can just knock off while I'm doing everything else. And I picked this, the Revell / Monogram P38J. I have a few other P38s. I've got the Hasegawa J, and I've got the Academy F model, which I'm trying to be doing up as a British one at some point. But the main reason I wanted something easy and something different, so I picked this, and I am going to do it up in, let's get all this out of here. I'm going to be doing it in the Night Fighter version, which it's going to be simple. It's going to be, landing gear is going to be up. It's going to be built simple, cockpit closed. I don't have to mess around with lots of complicated details. As a Night Fighter version, the whole thing is just going to be painted black. And I do have somewhere in here the instructions, and that is the final build. It's just all black, roundels, red letters, gear up. That's it. That's it. Full stop. Nothing crazy. Simple build, just to kind of keep the juices going, keep myself busy while I build the other kits, get them out of the way. And it's going to look kind of cool having an P38 Night Fighter. You know, it'll look good beside my P62 or P61 Black Widow. So, you know, very easy, very simple. Just get it out of the way. This is a kit. I bought a bunch of models, a lot of them. I think I paid $50 for 4 kits. This was one of them. I sold my dad one of them for $30. So I was in it for 20 bucks. So I got this. I got the 1/72 scale C-130J. And I can't remember what the other one was now, to be honest. But anyways, so I'm like 5 or 10 bucks in on this thing. So it's not much money. It's a simple build. I'll get it knocked out, and it just keeps me building, keeps me busy. And that is that. So those are the 4 kits. As I said, expect a full, I'll do full model reviews, like a kit review video on the P38 and the C-130 and the B-25. So those will be coming out soon. You'll see the time lapse on those 4 kits. You'll see those coming soon. Yeah, I think that takes us basically to the end of this. So on this note, it's going to be like an instantaneous cut for you guys. For me, it's going to be a few more weeks of work and plugging along. But let's jump over. We'll take a look and see what those 4 kits are by the time you see this. So here we are back at the desk. We'll take a look at the progress on the kits I've got going. There hasn't been much, as I stated before. In reality, I've only actually started working on 2 of the 4, I call it 3 of the 4 kits, but in reality I've been working on 2. So we're going to start with, again, there's no particular order, just this happens to be however I started placing stuff on the shelf here. So we'll start with the one that I have the most work done on, and that is the MPC C-130. As I said before, this is going to be done as a commission build. I'm doing it up as an RCAF bird in a search and rescue format. So I have been spending a bit of time doing some modifications, minor modifications to this kit in order to facilitate that search and rescue sort of mod that is done to the Canadian birds. So I'll show you right off the bat. So I've got most of the interior completed. As you can see, I have it painted gray. Some of the minor things that need to be done to finish the kit have been done. For example, I've got, excuse me, the wheel wells are in place. The door, which this will be built in an in-flight stand. So the door has been installed. The upper hatch has been installed. I've given it a quick sand just to blend it in a little bit. Excuse me. You can clearly see when you sand how white the plastic is compared to this. You can see the plastic is yellowed quite significantly. I'm not sure if that shows up in the camera or not, but there's definitely a more white color whenever you sand it, just showing the age of the plastic. Back here on the rear door, I've got is where I've spent the vast majority of my time on this kit. So normally you would have the kit door would be mounted here. The Canadian RCAF Search and Rescue, there is I'll show you in a sec what I did with the floor, but there's a little insert that gets in place. I'll actually post a picture of it here that I'm using for references. So you can see how it is a little skid, excuse me. There's a little skid kind of pallet type thing that gets installed, and there's a chair, and the airframe door is opened, and this clear door gets swung into place and takes its place. So on the model, I've had to replicate that. So for the clear door, what I did is I used some strip styrene, which I have here, this stuff here. I used that and I built up this little lip, and it's just in far enough on the door to insert a piece of clear plastic. And I did it on both sides. So you can see one there and one there. And then what I did is I went upstairs to my daughter's room and I scavenged through her games, and there was a game that had this clear plastic sheeting that acted as like the clear window for the front of the box. So what I've done is I've taken that and I'm going to cut it and install that just so it sits on that little lip I made. And it should be just thick enough that when it's all installed and cleaned up, it will be blended in quite nicely and will give me the look I'm looking for. And then all I need to do is mask the frame around the outside, and when I paint it, it looks like it's going to have this big clear window in the middle. So that's the plan of how I plan on doing this. So hopefully it's all going to work out in the long run. That's what I'm working on. For the interior, I did the modifications back here. So this is the seats. You can see where once the interior gets installed, looking in from those side windows, you will see the little seat sitting in there, which lines up with the seat that you see on the real plane. And that's just, I went through my spare parts. I scavenged up a couple of old seats. I don't even know what they're from, some sort of fighter. I clipped the ends to give them this trapezoidal look at the back, the way the real seats were. A bit of plastic rod. Actually, it's old sprue. I used an old piece of sprue as a little stand, and this is just a piece of sheet styrene like this. There's a little plate at the bottom to mimic the my mind is wandering, to mimic the skid. And when you put it all together, you get something that is pretty convincing for, you know, the chairs inside the plane. And the back doors will be up. It is, like I said, in flight, sort of just in a takeoff mode. So these will be mounted and closed up. So you're not really going to see much on the inside when it's all done. It's just a vague hint that there are seats in there. So that's what I went with. It's going to look good. I like where it's going so far. I've also got the cockpit assembled and painted. I still have to go through and do some detail painting. The seats are going to have sort of orange on the cushions. The black will be painted here on the yokes. And then that's pretty much it. A little tiny bit of black wash. You're not going to see a whole lot through the window once it's all assembled, other than seeing sort of the orange seats and the black details. It's going to be pretty bland in there, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of work. And then the landing gear, the front gear I've actually installed sort of the way it's supposed to be built, with it being able to be moved. And that is because eventually when I paint it, and when it's all installed, I will be able to effectively pick the angle, because it is going to be built on a stand, as I said, with the gear just being retracted. So this will allow me to select, especially on this nose gear, right where I want the wheels, and then I can adjust the doors and glue the doors in the right angle. The main gears will be easy. I just have to snip the main landing gear. You can see what clips in there. I can just snip it off, glue it up so the wheels are just protruding out a little bit, and then glue the doors in place again. So that's going to be relatively easy to do. The hardest part is going to be getting this interior kind of finalized, get those clear parts installed, cleaned up, and then the next big step I have on this is going to be rebuilding. I showed this last month if you looked at the intro. This kit was short shot, so I am missing this. Let's widen you out just a little bit. I'm missing this entire back half of the fuselage. So I'm going to have to rebuild this as much as I can with some sheet styrene. So I'm just going to use the same stuff. I'm probably going to, this top plate here is nice and flat. So I'm going to start by finishing this off and creating this upper, kind of just trace this and then fill it in. That's going to be my first stage. And then once the top piece is in, I'm going to slowly work my way around. The side is this flat square, so that's easy to install the flat piece over here that belongs. And then down here I just kind of have to start piecing it together bit by bit to try to get the little bit of a curve that fits. Now the other thing is, if I have this door glued in, I'm going to be able to work off the door, glue, strip, glue to here, curve it, glue, strip, 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 and do these all strips, fill it all in, and then a bit of putty and sanding, and I should be able to finish all that off and make it look good. So that's going to be the next kind of battle. After that, it's just going to be a matter of cleaning up a little few seams and then painting this beast. So overall, it's coming along. I have a plan of attack, which is the most important part of something like that. I know where I want to go, and I'm working my way to get to it. So that's the C-130. The other kit that I've been doing some work on is the P-38, the Revell P-38. Now this is the older kit. It's a 1964 mold. So the details are brutal, is the easiest way to put it. There are very little details. So I started by installing the gear doors, because it is going to be on a stand with the gear up. And I started, the booms have been assembled. All you see here are just the two halves of the boom, and then the gear doors installed and puttied. I've started to clean it up a little bit. It needs to be hit with a layer of primer, just so I can go in here and finish the gear doors. So both booms, I've done that, and I've started to clean up the seams a little bit, but it does need quite a bit of work. Now it is all raised panel line, so every time I do these sandings, it destroys the panel lines around where I've been sanding. But I'm not too worried, because I'm doing the Night Fighter version, so this will all be painted black, and it's going to hide a lot of that lost detail once it's all painted. But that is the start to that. So I'm working away at those, just trying to get those filled in. On the bottom of the fuselage, same thing. I got the nose gear door in, got some putty on it, got the sanding started, just to get that as blended as possible. Work my way up towards eventually getting this fuselage glued together, which is the first step I want to do, so I can start finishing off all of those seams. Moving on to the top, I have started painting the cockpit, which you'll see, and I've also modified the kit. So I pulled off the original rear decking, and I installed this piece here, which is for the Night Fighter. I've cleaned up these seams a little bit. What I have done so far looks good. I just oversprayed with the green just to take a look at that seam. It's a little rough back here at the rear corner, but that will be cleaned up once I glue everything together, because that gives me a nice firm point where I can start cleaning up this rear fuselage to wing matching seam. So I've got to do all of that eventually, but the first step is getting these two halves glued together. Also, as well as you can see, this nose, there's a lot of nose that's going to be assembled, so the seams I'm sure will be crappy, so I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding all up in this nose section and around the rear half section to get all this clean. So I want to get this assembled as fast as I can to get all of that work done. Obviously, I need to build the cockpit. So that's where I started here. I got the cockpit parts cut out, cleaned up, and I've got the first coat of interior green sprayed on.
The very, very soft detail, as I said, 1964. We're looking, this is a 60-year-old kit. Yeah, 60-year-old kit. It's not a young kit, and so the technology has definitely moved on. So these details are not the best. So I'm going to do my best to make the cockpit look decent. I have a feeling now, the issue is with the Night Fighter is I am going to have sort of, there's the rear half of the cockpit for the Night Fighter, but there is zero detail in there. There's no seat, there's no nothing, and all you're supposed to do is glue the rear pilot in here, and that's supposed to fill the space. And there's a little bit of an instrument panel here. So I think what I might do is break with my own tradition and put the pilots in here. It does come with the 2 crew members. I probably will paint them up and glue them in, and it's just going to hide the nastiness that exists inside this cockpit. And once the cockpit panel with the canopy is on, you're not going to see a whole lot in there. So I think that's my plan. I'm going to get the cockpit finished up, paint it up as well as I can, get some weathering, get some dry brushing, just try to hide as much of the nastiness as I can. And then I will install the pilots, get the canopies glued on, and just kind of get that knocked out of the way as fast as I can and move on to the next step. And like I said, here you can see I've got with the booms being started. The fit is absolutely brutal, so there'll be lots of sanding needed to clean all of that up, but you can start to see the sort of look of this P-38 coming together, and then it'll be mounted on the stand in the Night Fighter version, probably in a bit of a bank or something. But yeah, it's coming along, so it's not going to be perfect, it's going to be rough, but I was just looking for something quick to build, because I do need, if you saw my last month's introduction, I kind of said I have quite a bit going on with this, and I wanted an easier build that was just going to fall together for me. So this is kind of what this is. It's just a cleanse the palette type build. But there you go. That's the Night Fighter P-38. So I mean the C-130, as you saw, is going to take some work. Getting the interior finished, getting that back part cleaned up, making it look somewhat decent with a very old, very dated kit. So the P-38 kind of fit with it. The other 2 kits I'm working on, again with the intro, was the B-25. I had already started this. I just need to finish it off, put all the parts together. But because it's already assembled, I can get those kits kind of to the same point as this, and then I'll start working on this. And this is going to be a relatively easy build. The wings are already painted. I just need to get the fuselage more or less kind of cleaned up, assembled, painted. I'm just going to go with the standard aluminum paint, no metallizer paint. Get that done, get the basic decals on, call it finished. It will also be mounted on a stand, same as the P-38. So just to get it out of the way. The other kit I've been working on is the Battlestar Galactica Viper, which was I'm building for a friend of mine or an acquaintance of mine. And I have managed, if you saw the intro from last month, this was already assembled, and I've gone ahead and basically pulled it apart. I figured it out. You can kind of see from the sides. It looks like it was a generic color, some metallic front pieces here to the engine intake. So it's going to be a bit of a fun build. I'll figure it out as I go, really. But yeah, so that's the status of the 4 kits. 2 have been started. 2 are kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for these to get caught up. So I'll say that's probably it for the update on the kits. As I said, not much done. In terms of what you guys can expect for the next little while, I do have some more time-lapse videos being complete. Basically, the Zero one was released. I'll put the link up for that if you haven't seen it yet, the Zero time-lapse. The P-39 and the F-15 are both complete. They're both scheduled for release in the upcoming weeks. And I'm currently working on the C-45 time-lapse video. So those are going to be coming out. I've got a few more kit reviews. I did a kit review on both the C-130 and the P-38, and I believe the B-25. So those will be coming out in the next little while, kind of as filler videos to fill stuff in. And I do have, obviously, more of my built models that I can start to go through and show you guys what I've managed to complete. As well, I am working on some aviation history videos on the RCAF. So a general history of the RCAF, kind of opening, starts and endings of different squadrons and the expansion and contraction of the Air Force. And then I will be doing a history video for every single 400 series squadron in the RCAF. So it's going to be a bunch coming up on that kind of stuff. So Stay tuned to see what we got coming out in the future. There will be a bunch of videos, so don't hesitate to pop in relatively regularly, see what there is. And as always, if you like what you see, like, subscribe, and leave some comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking, what you'd like to see. So on that note, I will let you guys go. Stay tuned. As I said, I got some more content coming out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll do this all again in a month. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.